Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. I'm Stephanie Fisher. I'm a licensed counselor here in the state of Michigan, and I am owner and operator of In Progress Counseling. One of the cornerstones of a lot of the work that I get to do is education. Now, there is a point in time where why we do stuff, why other people do stuff, it doesn't always carry great weight and significance in the sense that sometimes things just are what they are. But if I understand what something is, I can likely better equip myself for what do I want to do with this thing that's in front of me. Why do I orient the way I do? Why do I, back away? Or why do I erupt? Or why do I, freeze? Why does the other person erupt? Why does the other person back away? Why do they freeze? And the education around what's going on in our human response systems, what's going on in my own defense mechanisms, it's honestly such a place of really, really interesting insight that prompts us towards what do I do with this thing that I'm seeing? And so I'll run it out with clients where they will tell me about a bad behavior that they're observing. They will tell me about something that's hard or something that's even hurtful to them. And I'll ask them, hey, I wonder what's going on with that person. And I get pushback, and it's like, I don't actually care what's going on. What they're doing is inappropriate. And I'll say something to the effect of, well, I'm curious what we do because this is going on. I'm curious, if I don't understand it and explore it, how do I equip myself for it? And so one of the pieces I'll often run through, and this was on the podcast a few months back as well, that idea of exposure therapy. We do a lot of exposure around human behavior that baffles people, that confuses people, that makes people uncomfortable. And it's like, yeah, we need to look at that. We need to investigate it. We need to wonder not why they're doing, not how to fix or change it, but we need to understand what's happening in front of us so that we can be equipped for that situation. Now, that's not necessarily everyone's responsibility, but I do feel that in my story, I do carry a high level of responsibility of trying to match my responses with reality, my responses with what's in front of me. So if I'm seeing someone who's being, we would say, like chronically inappropriate in how they're engaging, I'm actually going to be watching that so that when I say to someone, hey, there's something here I'm noticing a pattern, I'm noticing a trend, that's coming from a place of observation and not long-standing observation necessarily, but long enough to see a pattern and a trend that I can put language to, and that takes a little while. I don't know much about someone from a one and done. I do get to glean a lot of insights from habitual behavior. So when clients come in and they say, oh, this thing happened again, I'm like, yeah, we should look at that. What do you think's going on there? And sometimes that can be so frustrating because it's like, I don't know what it is, it just needs to stop. And I'll say, I don't know that it's going to stop. We probably have to figure out what it is so you know what to do with it. That's a pretty important piece, the investigating what's in front of me so I can select an appropriate response is a keystone of engaging reality in as healthfully a way as possible. Now, there's going to be times where that's not the appropriate response. There's going to be times where getting out of the situation is primacy. It's something we want to be doing right away. There's going to be times if there's an active, abuse situation. I'm not saying to someone in those contexts, hey, let's stop and really investigate. What do you think's going on there? But by and large, if I expect to get savvy about equipping myself for what I'm seeing, I've got to understand what I'm seeing. And that education piece is so helpful because often when we're uncomfortable, we have this aversion and it's like, I don't want to be around it. I don't want to deal with this. And it's like, right. And if I watched it a little longer, I might get a little bit more savvy about what the situation needs from me, what it's requiring of me, what my options are. And that's an exposure therapy practice where aversion takes me away from the distressor, but systematically I can approach it in a safe context, running it through, like clients can run it through with me, I can run it through with my friends, and I can say, hey, this is what I'm noticing. I'm not sure how to interpret it yet. These are the pieces that are occurring to me. And as I put together a coherent understanding of what I'm seeing, my choices around how to respond actually start to emerge. And it's coming from a place of often there's intuition, there's wisdom, there's a felt sense of responsibility to handle it in a way that's appropriate. Those are really great strategies. I don't typically get to engage those strategies if it's aversion, duck and cover, get out of here, I don't want to understand it. And so often there's a buy-in I need from clients to say, hey, let's slow it down a second and investigate this. And they'll say like, they don't need my empathy, they don't need my understanding. And it's like, I'm not saying it's for their benefit necessarily. I think it's for our benefit to slow it down and say, what am I actually seeing here? And again, there are caveats to that. If it's an unsafe context, we're not engaging that perspective taking and that empathy necessarily as the first step. But for us to grow savvy about what we're seeing, it's actually a really important step to lean in and say, hey, wait a second. What is this that I'm seeing? The more we can put language to it, the more we get to equip ourselves with the reality of what's going on in front of us.